Good morning, everyone. Today's topic is musculoskeletal radiology. So we'll discuss about the localization. Localize.
Just keep quiet. Just keep quiet. Slowly.
Localization of disease processes, uh, which involves bone, cartilage, synovium, and soft tissue, as identified on the plain radiograph, and we will demonstrate the systemic approach to interpretation of the plain radiograph. Recognize and describe the basic principles of radiographic features of the major arthropathies, which are osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, seronegative spondyloarthropathies, and septic arthritis and osteomyelitis. Then we will discuss about the radiographic fractures of common adult fractures, which are the scaphoid fracture, femoral nape fracture, vertebral, tibial, and ankle fracture. Then fourth point is recognize and describe the radiographic features of major bone diseases, which includes primary and secondary malignancies, Paget's disease, osteomalacia, and osteonecrosis. Then discuss the most appropriate further investigations following the plain radiograph, including the indications for other bone imaging like technetium bone scanning, ultrasound, and MRI, and interpret the results with a DEXA assessment for the bone density and assessment of osteoporosis. Now, for the systematic approach of musculoskeletal radiograph, we have to look for the 4 points. First point is alignment of the bones. Then we have to see the bones. Next point is the cartilage and soft tissue adjacent to the joint or the bone. The first point is alignment. Compare the alignment of each bone relative to the remaining structures. Then the position of adjacent articular surfaces normally should be 100% opposition between the two surfaces. And if there is partial opposition, means two bones are not in completely opposition. There is we call it as a subluxation, and if there is no opposition, then we call it as a dislocation. So the first point when you read the X-ray is the C for the alignment. Now these are the two images. In first image, we can see there is a glenoid cavity, and this is the head of the humerus, which is not in normal alignment.
Which one?
Third slide. Third, fourth one.
Start.
So the first image shows there is a partial loss of alignment. So we call it as a subluxation. And in this second image, there is a complete loss of alignment of the femoral head and the glenoid cavity. So it is called as a dislocation. Now the second point is bones. We have to see for the bones if there is any abnormality or variation. Like we have to look for the shape and size of each bone, then lucency, any opacity, and cortical continuity, growth and growth plate. Then third point is the cartilage. Look for if there is any decreased joint space, increased joint space, or chondrocalcinosis. So this is the image of chondrocalcinosis. Hmm? So now in this image, it shows the knee joint. So this is the femoral head, then this is the tibia, and this is the fibula. So this is the femorotibial joint. The peripheral portion we can see is the cartilage, and there is subtle radio opacity it's seen in this portion. And this is the calcium deposition, and this is the case of chondrocalcinosis. So then the last point is the soft tissues. We have to see if there is any joint effusion or free fat within the joint capsule, which is seen in the lipohemoarthrosis. If there is any gas, calcification, mass laceration, or foreign body. So this is the fat pad sign. The first image we can see here. This is the normal joint space, and in the second image, you can see the lucency, radiolucency, which is seen adjacent to this joint, and this is because of the fat. So it is called as a posterior fat pad sign. So normally in normal X-rays, we cannot see the fat, but if there is any radiolucency, it is called as a fat pad sign. Now, this is the knee joint view. This is the patella, and adjacent to this patella, there is subtle radiolucency is seen, and it is because of the fat. And in this case, it is the case of lipohemoarthrosis. So this radiolucency indicates there is some fat in the knee joint. Now the next point is describing the fractures. For fractures, we have to calculate then communication of the fractures with the outside atmosphere, then relationship to the joint, direction of the fracture line, and relationship of the fragments to each other. Now, how will you describe the fractures? For describing the fractures, first you have to see the number of the fracture fragments. If there are only 2 fragments are seen, then we call it as a simple fracture. If more than 2 fragments are seen, then we call it as a comminuted fracture. Then second point is describing the fractures by the presence or absence of communication of the fracture with the outside atmosphere. Best, it is evaluated clinically. So in closed fracture, there is no communication of the fracture line with the outside atmosphere, and in open, there is a communication. So first you have to calculate the fragments of the fracture, whether it is simple fracture or comminuted fracture, whether it is a closed or open fracture, depending upon the communication of the fracture fragments with that atmosphere, outside atmosphere. Describing the fracture by their relationship to the joint. If the fracture line involves the joint, we call it as an intra-articular fracture. And if it does not involve the joint, then it is called as an extra-articular fracture. And the next point is describing the fractures by the direction of the fracture line. In transverse fracture, the fracture line is perpendicular to the long axis of the bone. Transverse fractures are caused by the force directed perpendicular to the shaft. So in transverse, the fracture line will be perpendicular to the long axis of the bone. And in diagonal or oblique fracture, the fracture line is diagonal in orientation relative to the normal axis of the bone. Diagonal or oblique fractures are caused by the force applied in the same direction as the long axis of, and in transverse fracture, the force is directed perpendicular to the shaft. Next is the spiral fracture, a twisting fracture caused by the torque injury, such as might be caused by planting the foot in a hole while running. Spiral fractures are often associated with soft tissue injuries, such as tears in the ligament and the tendons. So for describing the fractures, you have to first calculate the fracture fragments, then the communication of the fracture fragment with outside atmosphere, then relationship to the joint, and the direction of the fracture line. Okay, the next point is relationship of the fragment to each other 4 parameters, like describing in terms of relationship of the distal fracture fragment related to the proximal fragment. So the point is displacement. Describe the amount by which the distal fragment is offset front to back or side to side from the proximal fragment. So we have to check the fractured bone in relationship with the adjacent bone. If the distal bone is fractured, we have to look for the displacement, like if it is displaced side to side or front to back to the proximal fragment. Then the next point is angulation. Describe the angle between the distal and proximal fragments as a function of the degree to which the distal fragment is deviated from its normal position. So first is the displacement, then the angulation, at which angle the fragment is displaced from its normal position. Then there is a shortening. Describe how much, if any, overlap, there is ends of the fracture fragments, which translates into how much the shorter the fracture bone is than it would be had it not be fractured. Then the fourth point is rotation. It involves the long bones, such as in case of femur or humerus, which describe the orientation of the joint at one end of the fractured bone relative to the orientation of the joint at the other end of the same bone. To appreciate the rotation, both the joints above and the joint below a fracture must be visualized, preferably on the same radiograph. So the fourth points for describing the fracture, first we have to describe the type of the fracture, then the displacement, angulation, if there is any shortening or rotation of the bone. Now, in case of tibial fractures, look for the shaft, then plateau. Plateau is the intra-articular at the knee joint, plafond, intra-articular at the ankle joint, and use the general rules for describing the fractures. Same as we have discussed previously. If in doubt, management will be to reduce, immobilize, or rehabilitate depending upon the type of the fracture. Now, this is the specific type of the fracture which is called as a Colles fracture. And in this image, we get first image is the frontal view, and the next image is the lateral view. So Colles fracture is the fracture of the distal end of the radius. Look for the displacement, which is called as a Dinner-Folk deformity. If there is dorsal angulation of the fracture line, shortening and radial deviation of the hand. So these are the four points we have to look in case of Colles fracture. In Colles fracture, there will be associated ulnar styloid injury, which is seen in 60% of the cases, and ulnar collateral ligament injury often associated. Next is the scaphoid fracture. If the patient comes with the tenderness in the anatomical snub box, after the fall on an outstretched hand, there is the possibility of the scaphoid fracture. So in scaphoid fracture, look for the first hairline, that is the thin radiolucent line is seen in this X-ray, which is and scaphoid fracture, the most common complication of the scaphoid fracture is it can lead to avascular necrosis of the proximal pole of that bone. So this is the hairline fracture, which is the radiolucent line. Now, the next fracture is the femoral neck fracture. So you can see this is hip fractures can be very subtle and sometimes require additional imaging such as bone scan or MRI, because in normal X-rays we can So next point is look for the angulation of the cortex and zones of increased density, closed white arrows. These 3 arrows indicates the increased density line here. And radiograph of the femoral neck should be obtained with the patient's leg in the internal rotation so as to display the neck in the profile. So for the better visualization of the femoral neck, we have to take the radiograph with the patient's leg is internally rotated. So you can see subtle radio opaque line, and which is the femoral neck fracture. Now the next fracture is Weber's, and Weber's fracture. It is the fibular fracture, and depending upon the position in relation to the syndesmosis is the attachment of this distal end of the fibula and distal end of the tibia. So this point is depending upon the relationship to this syndesmosis between the tibia and fibula. The classification is Weber's A, that is below the syndesmosis. So this is the fracture line which is below the syndesmosis, and it is called as, it is very stable. Then in next image, that is Weber's B fracture, the oblique fracture at the level of the syndesmosis, and it has variable stability. Weber's C is above, and this is the unstable fracture. Then the next common fracture which is seen in pediatric population is Salter-Harris fracture. So S for straight, that is the fracture is through the physeal line. Then A for above, that is only the metaphysis is involved. So the fracture line is going through this metaphyseal portion. L for lower, only epiphysis is involved. T is through the metaphysis and epiphysis. The fracture line is involving both the metaphysis and epiphysis. And R is for ramp, that is the compression injury. Now, after the bone fractures, we will discuss about the bone diseases. So bone is undergoing continuous change because of combination of forces including biochemical and mechanical. Increased osteoclastic activity can produce focal and generalized decrease in the bone. Increased osteoblastic activity can produce focal or diffuse increased bone density. Osteoclastic activity leads to decreased bone density, and osteoblastic will cause increase in the bone density. Osteoblastic metastasis, especially from the carcinoma of the prostate and breast, can produce focal or generalized increase in the bone density. And other diseases that can increase the bone density are osteopetrosis, avascular necrosis of the bone, and Paget's disease. Then osteolytic metastases are especially from the lung, renal, thyroid, and breast cancer. And they can produce the focal areas of decreased bone density, as in multiple myeloma. So there are the two types of the bony metastasis. First is the osteoblastic and osteolytic. There may be a reduction of the bone mass of almost 50% to produce recognizable abnormality on conventional radiographs. Examples of the disease cause generalized decrease in the bone density are osteoporosis, hyperparathyroidism, rickets in children, and osteomalacia in the adults. Pathological fractures occur with minimal or no trauma in the bone that had pre-existing abnormality. So we have to look for the bone diseases, in which we have to see for the bone density. We have discussed about when the bone density will increase and when the bone density will decrease. There are the osteoclastic and osteoblastic metastasis and activities. And in pathological trauma, when there is very minimal or no trauma to the bone, but there is pre-existing abnormality. So we call it as pathological fractures. Now the first bone disease is the primary bone. We will discuss the primary bone tumor. So this is a case of 26 years old male, and with a history of pain in the forearm for for 2 months. This is the AP radiograph of the forearm, and that shows destructive lytic lesion in the radius. So you can see adjacent bone. It's very clear. The outer is the cortex, inner radiolucent area is the medulla. But in this bone, there is certain destruction of the cortical margins on both the sides, destruction of the medulla, and this is not the homogeneous density we can see on the X-ray. So it is a destructive plus lytic, because it is a reduced opacity is seen in the medulla of the radius, and that is the typical of central chondrosarcoma. And you can see there's radio opaque foreign body like structures here, and these are the staples which are used during the time of the biopsy. Now this is the X-ray of the spine, lateral X-ray, lateral radiograph of the lumbodorsal spine in 54 years old female with metastatic breast carcinoma. So as compared to the vertebral body above and the vertebral body below, we can see there is reduced or decreased height of this vertebral body. So it is called compression or collapse of the vertebral body anteriorly. And the patient is presenting with a severe back pain, but there is no paraplegia, and the patient is known case of breast carcinoma. So as we discussed earlier, in CA breast, we will get the osteoblastic mates in the bone. So this is the radio opaque area we can see. So the vertebral collapse or compression plus radio opacity, and it is because of osteoblastic mates in a known case of CA breast. Now this is the AP radiograph of the pelvis, and that shows multiple sclerotic lesions. You can see the multiple radio opacities here. These are the multiple sclerotic lesions throughout the entire pelvis, as well as diffuse sclerotic changes which are seen at the vertebral level of L4 vertebra and upper third of the sacrum. So this is the upper third of the sacrum, L4, L5 vertebra, and diffusely distributed sclerotic lesions in the pelvis. And this is consistent with the metastasis from the prostate cancer. So this patient is the known case of CA prostate, and you can see the osteoblastic mates involving entire pelvis, sacrum, and L5 vertebra. Now this is the AP radiograph of pelvis again. It is showing the thickening of the femoral neck. There is thickening of the femoral neck and diffuse sclerosis involving all the bones of the pelvis. This is the case of Paget's disease. So in Paget's disease also you get the multiple sclerotic lesions and thickening, cortical thickening of the femoral neck. Now the next disease is osteoarthritis, and 4 findings you will get in osteoarthritis. First is the narrowing of the joint space, the normal joint space, femoral head and acetabulum is decreased. Then there is formation of subchondral cyst. These are the lytic lesions you can see here in this X-ray. So this is the lytic lesion, that is the subchondral cyst. Then you will get the subchondral sclerosis. So this is the radio opaque area. It is called as a subchondral sclerosis, and there will be the marginal osteophytes. So you can see here there is an extra bony growth, that is the marginal osteophytes are seen. These are the 4 findings you will get an osteoarthritis. So narrowing of the joint space, subchondral cystic areas, subchondral sclerosis, and marginal osteophytes formation. Now the next case is rheumatoid arthritis. So in rheumatoid arthritis, you will get the erosions of the proximal joint space. So in this image, you can get the carpal carpometacarpal joint space, and metacarpophalangeal. So this is the metacarpophalangeal joint. So there will be the erosions of the carpal bones. You can see here also there are certain erosions of the carpal bones, narrowing of the joint space. There is complete narrowing of the joint space. And in late findings of the rheumatoid arthritis are the deformities like ulnar deviation of the fingers at the metacarpophalangeal joint. You can see there is a slight deviation and subluxation of the metacarpophalangeal joint and ligamentous laxity leading to deformities of the finger. Next is the psoriatic arthritis, and typically it involves the small joints of the hand, especially the distal interphalangeal joint. So this is the distal interphalangeal joint, and there will be absorption of terminal phalanges. So the tip of this phalanx is very small, and there will be the erosions and absorption of terminal phalanges with telescoping of one phalanx into the another, which is called as a pencil in cup deformity. So you can see here the tapering of the end, and it is called as a pencil in cup deformity. Mostly it involves the small joints, distal interphalangeal joint, and pencil in cup deformity. If there is this typical picture, we can call it as a psoriatic arthritis. And in this image, you can see the ankylosis of the second two. That is, the joint is fused. There is no joint space is remaining, and more pencil in cup deformity. So this is the severe form, pencil in cup plus ankylosis. Next is the seronegative spondyloarthropathies. AP radiograph of the upper pelvis and the spine, and both the sacroiliac joints are fused. Bilateral and symmetric fusion of the sacroiliac joint. And bamboo spine appearance. That is the fusion of the multiple syndesmophytes are formed. That is the larger osteophytic formation, and that results, these are fused, and that with the appearance of a bamboo spine. So in seronegative spondyloarthropathy, that is ankylosing spondylitis, we can get the bamboo spine appearance and fusion of the sacroiliac joint. Next is the septic arthritis. Arthritis is the inflammation of the joint space. So there will be destruction of the articular cartilage. You can see this is the lytic areas. So this articular cartilage is destructed, and it is because of the proteolytic enzymes that are released because by the inflamed synovium, and there will be associated osteopenia, that is the reduced bone density. So this is the normal bone density, and you can see there is decreased bone density in this adjacent bone, destruction of the cartilage margin, and if there are small bubbles of the gas like this, you can see here, it is present in the soft tissue. It is because of the gas forming bacterial cellulitis. So it is due to the infection, septic arthritis, and you can get the destruction of the adjacent articular bones and cartilages. Now, if the septic arthritis is progression of the septic arthritis, in early cases of the disease, it will be limited to the concentric joint space loss. So the initial finding in septic arthritis will be only the narrowing of the joint space or joint space loss. Later on, it will lead to subchondral erosions and sclerosis. So there will be subchondral erosions and sclerosis of the femoral head. So this is the radio-opaque area is seen at the femoral head, narrowing of the joint space, and subtle radiolucencies, that is the cartilage erosions. And 8 months and after the initial example, this is the same case, we can get the osteonecrosis and complete collapse of the femoral head. So there is deformed femoral head, normal surface of the femoral head is completely lost, and complete loss of the joint space. So this is the end stage of the septic arthritis, which leads into the osteonecrosis. So this is the case of osteoarthritis. As we discussed earlier, there will be the loss of joint space, subchondral bony cyst formation. You can see these radiolucencies. These are the bony cysts. Subchondral sclerosis, this white area, radio-opaque area, and there will be the osteophyte formation. So now in this case, you can see the sclerosis of the joint space, sacroiliac space. So it is seen in seronegative spondyloarthritis, psoriasis, inflammatory bowel disease, and Reuters syndrome. This is the sacroiliitis, that is the inflammation of the sacroiliac joint. Okay, this is the case of septic arthritis. You can see this second metacarpophalangeal joint. You will get there is a destruction of the joint space, destruction of the articular cartilage process, that is the radiolucency C, and adjacent soft tissue edema. You can see there is edematous edema formation adjacent to this joint space and radiolucencies of the articular portion of the joint. Okay. Now this is also the case of sacroiliitis, sclerotic bony metastasis, because there are the multiple sclerotic areas. You can see here. These are the multiple sclerotic areas are seen in both the iliac bones as well as in ischium, pubic process. So these, and here the visualized portion of the sacrum and this L5 vertebral body. So these are the probably sclerotic bony metastasis or osteoblastic mets, which are breast cases. Now, there is a subtle radio-opaque line you see here, and after getting the proper history from the patient, you can see the femoral neck fracture here, because this is the subcapital femoral neck fracture. So this is the radio opacity seen, subtle radio opacity seen. Now this is the hip osteoarthritis case, because there is narrowing of the joint space and sclerosis of the articular surfaces of the hip joint. As we discussed, 3 types of the Weber's fracture, that is the fracture of the fibula, and this is the fracture B at the level of syndesmosis, and it has a variable stability. So in this image, you can see this the fracture line. This is the radiolucent line. It is the fractured 5th metatarsal. So this is the linear fracture. Now in this image, you can get the fracture line here and subtle angulation of the distal end of the radius. So this is the Colles fracture. In this image, this is the AP image. You can get there is a fracture of the scaphoid bone. Here is the intra fracture of the middle phalanx, index finger. Middle phalanx of the index finger. It is intra-articular fracture because it is involving the articular surface of the bone. Now, this is the shoulder X-ray, and the humeral head is not in proper opposition with the glenoid cavity. So it is the dislocation because it is not slightly displaced from the position, but it is completely dislocated. So it is the anterior shoulder dislocation. This is the femur bone, and you get the femoral shaft. Then this is the tibial plateau, and you can see this radiolucent line which is going through the tibial plateau. So it is a tibial plateau fracture. So there is a radiolucent area which is fat. It is called as a posterior fat sign. We have already seen that. So this is the case of lipohemoarthrosis. X-ray of knee joint, and there is some radiolucent area, that is the fat, and this is the hyperdense area. So there will be the level. You can see this radiolucent and radio opaque, and there is complete line between this. It is the case of lipohemoarthrosis. So there is a bony structure or radio opaque structure is seen at this level. It is called as a sesamoid bone. Okay. So X-ray shoulder, you can get the light bulb-like sign. It is seen in the posterior dislocation of right shoulder joint. This is also the case of dislocation, that is the inferior dislocation of the shoulder joint. So in posterior dislocation, you will get the light bulb sign.